confidence is something I've struggled with. It's because of the trades that I've learned the formula for confidence. There is a formula. Confidence is built by competence. It's by doing the same thing over and over again until we're successful. It starts when you're a little kid and you take that sippy cup and you take a sip for the first time and you miss, right? By the time you're successful, right? You build a little confidence. And so I love the trades for that. The trades has built my confidence.
Welcome to Hands-On Heroes podcast. I'm Val Crafton, the voice of grit. I champion the people who power progress and prove that the future is built by those willing to get their hands dirty. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome to Hands-On Heroes. I am so excited about this guest today. I've been watching her career and following her on social media, Lady Volt. It's such an honor to have her here today. I really wanted to honor an electrician, a female electrician in the field as part of my release, Hands-On Heroes, the electrician for children's books and STEM kits. And so when I reached out to Shannon and asked her if she'd be willing to be on the show, she was like 100%. Her heart is with children as well and future generations, which is probably why she started Lady Volt. We'll learn more here in a few minutes, but let's go ahead and kick off. Shannon, please introduce yourself and tell us, your story, like before you ever got into electrical. Tell us a little bit about you leading up to that.
Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me onto your show and giving a place for people to share voices and stories and about the trades, about education, about, children. Such a passion for me. My name's Shannon Tymosko. I'm an electrical apprentice. So I like to tell young people that means I'm like a student. I'm like a college student equivalent in the process of becoming an electrician. So I'm not quite there yet. And I work with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Local 105. And so that's where my base is. But where did I start? Okay? So where did I start? Where did little Shannon start? So I was born and raised in a small town here in Canada, just north of the big city, Toronto, called Keswick. It was a little, it's on a lake, so it's known for ice fishing. Anyway, so I was born and raised there, a small little town, very typical raising, had a sister, parents. But the unique thing I think back now and I reflect about my childhood is I certainly had a mother a role model, let's say, or an example for the trades. And so my dad, not the handiest man, and that's probably saying more. This year was the first year that he picked up an impact when we were doing some home renovations, and he used the impact for the first time. So that was a really nice experience. But it was certainly my mom who had the skills, was a handy lady growing up, and that's came from even earlier on. Her father, my grandfather, Peter Gallagher, he was a teacher and did tech class in high school here in Canada. So she had a little bit of an example. I had an example. She built things. I remember like the doghouse. We had a dog, Draco, loved him. But she built his doghouse for us. She built me a bookshelf for one of my birthdays. And so she was the one who showed me that there's no limits here. Gender doesn't, dictate what you can and can't do. However, with that being said, it wasn't something that was really talked about, the trades or the skilled trades or anything like that as a future, as a career choice in my household, let's just say. And I did take the tech program in high school. So I went to a new high school at the time. It was only 3 years open. And so they did not have a well-established tech program, but I did take it. I was the only grade 9 female student. So, I was open to different ideas. However, I just didn't really consider it, despite, I did have opportunities and interest. So I didn't have many opportunities to explore the trades in grade 11 or 12 as, future career paths. So I kind of did like so many people do at that age. They find something that they're good at, something that they kind of like, and they try to turn that into a future. So at the time, I liked business. I liked numbers. I was good at math. And so I signed up for what I thought I was going to enjoy was accounting. So I got into a diploma program, and it was like 2-3 months in. By November, I was like, this is not for me. Like, these people, they're not social butterflies like I am. I am not mixing with this world. This is not for me. And so at that time, My mom was good. She was good in the sense of like, you started something, let's finish something, or at least finish that first commitment. So you signed up for the year. I want to see you get that year, finished, and then you can transfer to something you're more passionate about. But you've already committed, paid the money, finish it for the semester. And so I pivoted into a program, child and youth work, where, help in the development, growth, mentorship of young people. And at that time, when I finished the program, I did find myself in a job working at a shelter for homeless youth. It was one of my favorite jobs, but I imagine the social service in all of North America is the same. It doesn't pay very well. And so I, found myself in what was supposed to be a temporary college job, and it turned into almost a 10-year career working at Payday Loans, which is like a financial institution. Nothing I aspired to, just kind of fell into it. Wasn't my dream. And so at about 29 years of age, I, trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life, and also wanting some wants. I think that was really like I hit 29 and I was just still gathering debt instead of gathering, maybe a home, a car, these kinds of things. And so I wanted more. At that time, my best friend Matthew, he bought a house. He wanted to do some renovations. Neither of us tradespeople. He was a bus driver at the time, and I was a business person. But with the help of like YouTube, Google, all those resources, we did some renovations. I look back and hire a skilled tradesperson. Mudding and drywalling is really hard. So when I go into that house now, I'm like horrified by some of the mud work that we did. However, it did spark a little, thing in me realizing that, this is something I could do. Like, I would enjoy working with my hands. I really enjoyed that sense of pride when I was, finished something, thinking, look what I did. Well, I didn't see that coming. So at that time, I started looking at different options. I knew the skilled trades paid well. And so I wanted to, a job that allowed me to thrive. That's what I like to say, thrive, not just survive. And I found a pre-apprenticeship program to help transition women into the trades. Next thing you know, I'm working, I finished that program. I'm working with the union. And now I'm the electrical apprentice I am today.
That is an incredible story. So a few things that stood out to me. One, the early exposure by your mom, really setting that example, and it warms my heart because that's the kind of mom I am too, And I absolutely love that. For me, that exposure was my father, and he was a construction worker, and seeing what was possible. And I think that was the same thing for me. Is I was being handed tools at a young age and building things. And it was that thing that sparked and it made me realize how much independency and power came with being able to fix up your own house, or be able to have, be able to make a great paycheck, right? And so I love that exposure. I love that you took a class in high school just to explore that a little bit more. Clearly, this was an early on interest, but it hadn't been really established until you physically started building something, even if it was just sort of this fun hobby with a friend. It really sparked something bigger. And what I love is the exploration. So when I went to college, I was pretty determined on what I wanted to do. I had a very clear path. No one had explained to me that the trades, or that was an option for me. I thought I had to go to college because that's really what they push in school. When I went into the college, I saw that. I saw the folks who really were floundering around. They thought they knew what they wanted to major in, or they didn't know what they wanted to major in, and they would do these general studies. They changed their major 2 or 3 times, eventually dropping out with debt, no degree, and no job and no direction, really. And that was too bad. And that was the thing that I saw when I got into the field, where the tradespeople for the last 4 years had been getting paid to learn, while I was paying someone else to learn. And they were buying houses when I was paying off college debt. And that was a big wake up call to me. It's like, man, had I known that this was a path, this sounds way more glamorous than, I can always go get, a certification of project management, Or I can, a lot of companies will actually pay for you to go beyond just being a laborer. Then you can actually become into that management. They'll actually pay for your education to continue once you've gotten to an age. And I think that for so many that you don't really know a lot of times what you want to be when you grow up until you do get in your later 20s. And so I strongly recommend going out and trying different things. And the trades should definitely be one of it, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You learn how to fix things in your own house that you own now.
Yeah, I cannot agree with that more. Like, I really think the process needs to be flipped on its head. Instead of kids going out and getting, because they're kids, they're still kids, getting debt, starting their life with debt, send them out, start an apprenticeship for 2 or 3 years. Most of the young people now, and I'm surprised by this. When I was younger, it was very typical for us to have summer jobs, after school jobs, to have a job before you've gone to university or college. But now young people haven't even explored a job, what it is to wake up on time and be accountable to an employer. No one's explored that. So tons of benefits more benefits, in my opinion, would come from a youth taking the opportunity for 2, 3 years, going out to the industry, whatever industry it is, working, seeing what it's like to have a real job. That way they actually, they can learn to respect certain perks that they get in the future, right? Because sometimes there's people that we work with and they don't quite understand how blessed they are in the situation because they've never had maybe a tough time. So let's, give them those experiences. Additionally, build lifelong transferable skills. My goodness, how many of our youth don't even know how to level a picture on a wall, find the stud, put a little nail in, put the picture up. And I remember when I was a kid, one of my favorite things was decorating my room. It was like, I'm sick of this design. I'm tearing it apart and redesigning it. And that included things like painting, putting up pictures. And our young people now, they're like, I'll pay someone to do that. They don't even realize that it's something that is within their range, their capabilities. So yeah, I think university and college is great. It's of course an important step, but what I think is more important is that we set our youth up with success and not debt. So, since it's not for everybody, let's set them up with some transferable lifelong skills, giving them a chance to build some, a bank account, then discover what they want. Because like you said, most of our young people don't know what they want to be until their late 20s. Why is that? It's because they've had a chance to experience the world, to work, to see what they like. 18, 17 is far too young to put that pressure on them. But they certainly need to start learning responsibility at 18. Get a job. Yeah. Get a job, which is an apprenticeship, right?
I mean, and the fact of the matter is let's be real, our brains are still growing at that age. I mean, our frontal lobes are not even fully developed for reasoning skills. So a lot of times, when you're talking to your teenager and you're like, what were you thinking? They weren't. They don't have reasoning skills. And so to be able to throw them out there and ask them to start making reasonable decisions about their future, I think the right thing to do is to go and intern at a lot of different places. And I love that you kind of did that in a way, right? You went and explored accounting and math. You will always have a skill from a business perspective with that. Really being able to reach out and give back to your community. That's a youth and that mentorship and the shelter and the homelessness and working with the youth. That will be forever with you, which is why you and I connected and you immediately were like, yes, I want to support you because that's planted in your heart. And you got to see a lot of that hardship right up front. And that's one of those things close to my heart as well, is making sure that our hands-on heroes are really partnered with the foster care program, because a lot of those youth do not have the people, or maybe the folks who are fostering need those partners in place to help guide those children to what is possible. And so I absolutely love that. This episode is powered by Mod 42, the modular data center company redefining speed to market. From design to delivery, Mod 42 brings precision manufacturing, quality assurance, and trusted execution to every build. When reliability can't wait, Mod 42 delivers. Learn more at mod42.com. Two other things. I want to touch on two other things. And one of them was you had arrived to a point to where you you wanted stuff in life, right? You wanted to own a house, you wanted to own a car, you wanted to be out of debt. And you're like, how do I do that? And the independency and to be able to be in a place that allowed you to thrive, hands down, the trades and having a job in the trades gives you that. So I mean, we've already counted a half a dozen reasons on why someone should go into the trades. Just from a financial independency, just being able to fix things and know how to do things. And these are skills, you said it when you first jumped on here. This is trades and apprenticeship is really your college. And these are skills and everything you learn. These are the things that no one can ever take away from you. So college isn't the only path. Sometimes college looks like an apprenticeship. That's why I say, my slogan is hands-on heroes is really sometimes heroes don't wear capes, they wear tool belts. So thank you for being one of our heroes. And so let's fast forward to today. You're in an apprenticeship. Tell us about, walking in the first time and what has that felt like going through and what are some of the things you've learned so far?
Well, one of the first things I want to pop, a myth I like to pop. When you're in an apprenticeship, and in Canada, again, I don't know the States, but I'm assuming we're slightly similar. In Canada, I go to college. I know I say like there's the college and university pathway, but apprenticeship includes college, right? It's an important piece of my apprenticeship. I go to training institutions, the same that everybody else may pay for to go and attend. I get to go as part of my apprenticeship with government supports, reduced tuition, all these kinds of things. So it makes it affordable. And one of the things I also love about apprenticeship is, well, guess what? I was 30 years of age when I started over. How hard would it be to start over at 30 years of age with a 4-year degree program in front of you? Almost impossible if you don't have an immense good support system and a big bank account, right? So the apprenticeship allows you to be able to thrive, but still get an education at the same time. And so for me, the apprenticeship, again, it's a learning experience. And so, I've been, of course, learning the craft and learning the science and safety behind it. But like you kind of said, it's a job. So the financial freedom's beautiful. But some of the things that I didn't realize that I would find in the apprenticeship or in the trades, and I think this is pretty blanketed for all trades, is some of the things I love about the trades. One of the things is how it contributes to my overall mental and physical health. So the physical health people understand. People are like, oh, you use your body, it's like a gym, right? But the mental health piece, that's a little bit more less clear. And so for someone like myself, especially in Canada, we have, right now it's dark at 4:45 p.m. here. It is so depressing, and I use that word because seasonal depression is a real thing. Anxiety, these kind of things are real life things that people deal with, and something I have. And one of the things that, I had a good doctor, and he said, one of the first things he asked me is, Shannon, do you exercise? And at the time, I had this office job, right? The most exercise I did was to the coffee pot, to the bathroom, in the kitchen, right, during my workday. So it's one of the benefits of the trades that you'll never see on your paycheck, but it contributes to my overall, not just my physical health, but my mental health. The other thing that I have found about the apprenticeship that, I'm so grateful for is like, I've always struggled with confidence my whole life. I still, to this day, there's, I think it's a pocketed situation. There's parts of my life I'm very confident. There's parts of my life where I'm less confident. But confidence is something I've struggled with. And it's because of the trades that I've learned the formula for confidence. There is a formula. So when someone comes to you as a young person and they're like, well, honey, I just wish you had a little more confidence. You leave that person so confused because you didn't give them any solution. You just told them something they probably already knew. So here's the formula. Confidence is built by competence. It's by doing the same thing over and over again until we're successful. It starts when you're a little kid and you take that sippy cup and you take a sip for the first time and you miss, right? By the time you're successful, right? You build a little confidence. And so I love the trades for that. The trades has built my confidence. And it's not something anybody told me ahead of time. Oh, get ready for a confidence boost, girl, because you're going to get one. Nobody said that to me. But it's something that I think people need to know. You want to build confidence in life? Put down your cell phone. Go out, use your physical body, use your brain, and get something done yourself. Leave AI at home. leave it and go do it yourself. In these opportunities, this is where you build confidence. So it's, again, something that nobody told me was going to, be part of this journey, but something that I've really, come to be so grateful for, because for me, my mental health is the most peaceful thing it's the best blessing I can have. And anything that contributes to that really is a blessing. So that's like the personal note. But the apprenticeship pathway, I've loved it because, again, it's not just giving me a career, right? Giving me an education, but I'm not going out of pocket for it. And being with the union, now I know there's non-union and there's union, and so I don't have the viewpoint from non-union, but the union side, it really is like call it a brotherhood, a sisterhood. It's a little bit of a family. And the nice thing I've really, come to love is you go to different sites. You might work with Bob here, you might work with Joe here, but at some point you're going to run into Bob again. And, it's something I've reflected about over my previous careers. How many times have you worked with people that you spent 40 hours a week with? And you're like, we're best friends. I'm going to miss you so much. You're shedding tears on the last day. We're going to stay in touch. And you never do. Right. And so with the trades, I get to run into these people. I get to run into and it creates this brotherhood. So I've really, really enjoyed, not just what it's given me financially. That's of course, it's a job. It's not a hobby. I make more money as a student now, than I did in any of my previous jobs. It's a stress reliever, which contributes to your mental health. So I love the trades for anyone, male, female, because, again, everybody's capable of doing the trades. There are certainly more difficult aspects of it, but it's not for the full duration of your 40-hour work week, right? We all work harder for small bouts and then we go back. So I love the trades. I'm very passionate about it. One, for that career, debt-free, paid to learn, and it give you so many things that you'll never find on a paycheck. Community, independence, as we talked about, transferable skills. I'm in electrical, but just on the weekend I did my own oil change. I've been doing that for the last 2-3 years now. My brakes I did a month ago, and so saves you time, saves you money. But it's an amazing career choice, one that is unfortunately so overlooked until most people find them. I think the average average age for apprenticeship here in Canada is late 20s, early 30s. And so people aren't picking it as a first career. It's a second career. And so I'd really like to change that. I'd like to see our young people, build some transferable skills, build a little bit of money, see what they like, what they don't like, get some hope, and then make a decision.
Incredible. One of the things I made a few notes as you were talking, I want to touch on. One of the first things you said was, it's very difficult for someone, especially someone of 29 years old. And a lot of women and men, here you are, maybe you have children at home, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not affordable to have, even if you have two adults in the home, but if you have children, it's not the childcare is so expensive. It's sometimes not affordable for both of you to work, right? So to think about doing a job and then trying to do night classes for the college and then pay for those night classes. And then while you're trying to do that, maybe your spouse is also doing a job and then you're paying for childcare. I mean, it's a huge burden, but we just solved that talking here right now. You get paid to learn during the day, maybe while your kids are at school.
Yeah.
And then, and it helps balance it. It really, really helps balance it out. I love what you said about the mental health and how you're always moving. And even more so, that formula you talked about, that formula about competence. I truly believe that my early exposure to construction, because I grew up in a family construction, my dad was a home builder, and that was what I was around my whole life. But he put tools in my hands and he showed me how to figure things out, right? Everything's figure outable. Nothing's impossible. And I built a lot of confidence in what I can do. And to this, all the way through my career, whenever time someone ever says to me, oh, that's impossible, or we've tried it, we've done that, or you'll never achieve that. To me, that sounds like a challenge, because I'm like, well, that just means you haven't figured it out yet. Because I have a lot of confidence from the competence I built in understanding how much power comes with being able to fix things, do things yourself,
Absolutely.
not be codependent on someone else. I can figure this out. I can do this. So that really resonates with me and probably a lot of other folks that are listening in. You didn't say it directly, but you said it indirectly. Critical thinking, really
Mhm.
that problem solving and just really working on the critical thinking. You talked about kind of putting that AI down, putting the phones down, putting the computers away and going out and figuring things out. And I think that's where that, in the trades, you really develop your critical thinking. They
Mhm.
train you, right, on how things go, but every situation is a little different sometimes. And you really require a little bit of problem solving, question, test, and then
Yeah.
did it work? And then test it again and did it work? And so it requires a lot of critical thinking and then love that it brings you the community. I found that to be true. In the world of construction, it is a small world. And I have run up against some of the same folks that I've worked with on multiple projects and to this day are still connected to really well because you know why? It wasn't that we just sat in two cubicles by each other, right? It was because we were out in the fields problem solving together. And a lot of bonding happens when you do that. So I can't agree more that that's been my experience as well. And the independency from a financial perspective, absolutely can't agree more with that. Let's talk about a little bit about your apprenticeship though, and what are like if somebody was interested in entering in, what does that
Mhm.
sort of step look like? Walk us through sort of apprenticeship and those step by steps, and what are some of the first things you learned as an apprentice learning the electrical trade?
I think like one of the hardest steps of an apprenticeship, and in Canada, again, I don't know the experiences where everybody's from, but in Ontario, I hear this a lot and I experience it. Finding an apprenticeship is difficult. And so, because it's not a multi-million dollar school facility that's just willing to take on every single person possible, we are requiring our employers to do that education piece or the journeyman. We do, but it's a different system, so we require our contractors to take on that. It's hard to find sometimes a home, your first apprenticeship job, because there are rules put in place for contractors on how many apprentices they can take on, right? We can't overload a teacher, right? And
Right.
so this process I do think needs to be changed here in Canada because it's we're in such a demand for tradespeople that we need to increase it a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, so that there's more apprenticeship availability. That's hard, and I don't want anybody to be discouraged by that. And so if you're listening and you're one of those people, you're in that position of like, I've been trying. I'm not going to go through all the tips and tricks here because I could spend, a whole podcast doing that. But you can find me anywhere. And if you have the courage, and I say this to anyone, if you have the courage to reach out, I have all the time in the world for you to try to help you find that apprenticeship. And again, I do have tips and suggestions and all that kind of stuff. But that's very, person specific. So if you need me,
And
find me
location
online.
specific, right?
Yes.
I mean, I can speak to here. A lot of like, even I'm in Arizona.
Mhm.
We have tech programs that are connected with the high school, so you can actually start these programs in high school as part of your high school credit. And then we have quite a few community colleges, but right now the electrician alone is one of the most highly demanded trade right now. And most electrical companies have an apprenticeship inside. So you can just call directly to those companies
Yeah.
and ask them. And then, of course, the local unions can also
Yes.
connect you. So just some few quick tips right now from,
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, it is tough sometimes if you don't know where you're going or what you're looking
Yeah.
for. Shannon's just volunteered to be a mentor to you. I'm just
Yeah.
saying you can also reach out to your community colleges, your tech schools, your local electrical companies. Call your general contractors as well, because they have really great relationships in the industry and introduce you. And so those are some definite options. I love
And
that.
like my like one quick tip for people, the people overlook general supply stores or contractor supply stores. If I was struggling to find an apprenticeship, I'd go apply at, if I wanted to be an electrical, right? I'd go apply at electrical distributor every single morning. That's where the contractors go to pick up their supplies. It's the first place they go. I need this. And then they see you, right? And it's an opportunity to network, to let them know you have an interest, in apprenticeship. At the same time, you're in a position where you're learning the materials and the hardware and it's such a valuable job if you want to pursue the career. So I encourage, and that's an easier in, right? Get a job at a HVAC supplier or plumbing, wherever, your interest lies, as a stepping stone.
Yeah, I love that, because maybe they say, oh, our apprenticeship program is full, but so then you can say, well, do you have a prefab shop where you pre-assemble all of the components that get installed by the apprentice? So maybe you're out there doing those pre-bins on the pipe. Maybe you're assembling the little outlets that are going to get installed into the wall. So they're already got the little wires connected and so forth. And so that is another option, is to ask about those prefab shops. So that's another really great tip. I'm glad you brought that up. That's beautiful.
Because I know people get discouraged from that first step, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't like it's hard. And I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not easy in Canada to find that first, because everybody wants somebody with a little bit of experience. They don't want that green person. So that's where having that little bit of an edge, you work at an electrical contractor or distributor, it gives you a little bit of understanding. And, that next step, you're the person they're probably likely to hire because you have a little bit more than the next, right? So I do encourage people, don't give up. Please don't give up. Reach out to resources. It can take some time. Look up for your free government funded programs, because there's tons of them. Specifically in Canada, I imagine they're making the same push in the States. So please don't give up. I don't want anybody, but it's the hardest part. Then getting into the apprenticeship, right? It's like going to work every day. As an apprentice, the nice part is I'm a student. That means until I'm a journeyman, I don't carry the responsibility, right? That means I get to still ask questions. I get to go in every day, be like, I don't know. Even if I do know, I always want the lesson from the new person, because maybe they're going to give me something that the last journeyman might have missed. And so it's a place of learning. Every day I go in, do hard, work as hard as you can, right? For the day, make sure you're asking questions, being attentive, learning, but it's a job. So every day you're getting something new and you're working your way through it. And that's where I love that confidence building. Because normally there's times where I'm like, oh, I've never done this. I'm scared. I won't tell anybody, 7 a.m. I'm like, what did they just give me? Uh-oh, right? But by the end of the day, I've worked my way through it. Right. I've built that confidence and I'm ready to take on the next day. Bring on that project, because now I now know, and I now have the skills and all of that stuff. So that's the nice thing about apprenticeship. And I don't want anybody, because people think, oh, well, I don't know how. Well, you're not supposed to know how at the beginning of an apprenticeship. You're supposed to learn throughout. So if you don't know how to swing a hammer, or you don't know, what we have Robertson screwdrivers, you guys use Phillips, but if you don't know what these things are, then, that's the whole point of an apprenticeship, right? Don't be deterred by that. It's a learning environment. And I also tell people, because your apprenticeship is a school, right? It's an equivalent to your university. You need to and there's no necessarily teachers. You need to make sure that, you're getting, the education. So advocate. Sometimes you need a change in what you're doing, because if you spend your whole apprenticeship pigeonholed in one thing, it's a very big field. You're not doing yourself any service, right? So advocate for your education, make sure you're working safely, and advocate for safety. So if you don't feel safe, say something. And it's a beautiful journey though. And I love that, because it's a journey and it could be done in any, again, it's just your process, in your time, with what you've got. So
I think it's beautiful because, a lot of times you don't even think about it, but we've already touched on the apprenticeship. We talked about prefab shops, but then there's the business side. And, there's someone's got to actually do the estimating and the cost estimating and some of the pre-construction. So maybe you can go in and do an internship on the office side and kind of see, the back of house process of bidding and winning jobs and estimating the materials. And so when you get out into the field, you understand a little bit more about what these things cost and what does my time mean from a time and material perspective, and really being able to connect the dots at that time. because you will be dealing with change management when you're in the field, when you come up against unforeseen conditions that maybe were different than what was on your plans. And you go in, you're like, oh, this was not the type of wall I was planning on installing this outlet in. So this is going to take a little bit extra time and understanding what that means from a dollar and cents perspective. I strongly recommend that part as well. It really will give you a competitive edge. Now, let's transition a little bit. So we've talked about what that apprenticeship's like and what you get out of it and the independency and all these beautiful things. Let's take a few minutes because I do want to talk about, what it's like being a female in the construction space. And I know that there was a recent incident with Amber Czech and it was a terrible, tragic incident. And I want to touch on it because you and I started talking about it a little bit. And I thought it was a really good moment for you and I to actually take a pause here and say, I think we agree that this incident is tragic. But we also agree that men are not the problem, that it's really the cultures inside these businesses that when you enter in and you are going to be and will for a while, we've come a long way. I know I've been doing this for a long time. So we've come a long way and there are definitely more women, but we're still way outnumbered. And so I don't want women to see that headline and think, oh my goodness, kind of like shark attacks. This happens all the time and I'm not going to be safe in this. And so I probably won't go into this field. That's not the case. The men are not the problem in this situation. I'll let you say a few things. We'll talk about it for a few minutes. I don't want to go off this episode on a negative because I definitely want to talk about the future of Lady Volts next. But just take a pause and talk about, maybe some of our experiences and what that means to us when we show up in the field. I want to get your perspective on this first.
I was very saddened to hear about Amber Czech. It's workplace violence is, we talk about it every single job site we go on to, but it's not something that happens very often. So let's just be clear. It's not something that happens very often. And so I don't want people to be discouraged. It's a very sad, tragic incident, but it's not everywhere. So please don't let that discourage you. But I do want to remember Amber for, because that was a extremely tragic incident and it was a workplace violent incident. And we talked about this earlier, that workplace violence isn't just female on male or male. It's often a lot of times male on male, because that's what's been in the industry. And workplace violence is never acceptable. I don't want her name to be forgotten. I want us to use this as an opportunity to improve our policies, procedures, and improve the conversations, because they read those policy procedures, but do they execute them with seriousness? Are we looking out for our brothers and sisters? When you see something, say something. If a sister steps up and says, I have a feeling, right? Sometimes women have feelings. I know that might not always be, your
spidey senses, right? You got to listen to something's off. Something's off.
Yes,
something's off. I don't feel safe. And I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on it, but something feels off.
That's right. And listen to that gut feeling. Women need to listen to that gut feeling, and men need to support it when it's vocalized. Mm-hmm. And we do have a lot of allies. To go back to that, men are not the problem. There's a lot of, as we've talked about, mental health in our field, awareness for these, because there's going to be signs, awareness for this kind of behavior, for what
shutting it down immediately.
Yeah. And so let it be a reminder for everybody that, we need to look out for each other, say something when you see something, so that these incidents don't happen. But this is not an everyday occurrence. Mm-hmm. This is, it's the first time that I've sadly heard since I've joined the trade of this is a murder. Yeah.
I will say I've been doing this. I know you're an apprentice, but I've been in the field for 21 years and I've only had one incident like this happen, and it was male on male. It was a male who came to the site and attacked another male. I've never once had a female attacked ever. I have never felt unsafe on a job site. And so I don't want to dismiss what happened because it was tragic and terrible, but it concerns me. And I wanted to bring it up because it does concern me that we're trying to recruit more women to join this. And yet something like this happens, we might lose some folks who were considering this.
Yeah.
I want to be the voice, not only Shannon, who's in the trades, but me on I've got the general contractor background. I've never seen this happen. It's not common. Is bullying a thing? It happens, sure. Do we need to say something if something is off? If one of the guys are talking, or even gals for that matter, women bully as well.
Yeah.
And you may not see it as a physical harm, but it could be a mental health impact to you. We have to say something and stick up for our brothers and sisters, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all just trying to thrive and make a living and provide for families and ourselves. We're all striving for the same goals. And when something like this happens, it just tears my heart out and breaks my heart, because I'm not there. I don't know all the details, but I can't believe there weren't signs that there wasn't a way for someone to be like, well, that sounds a little off. Why are you saying that? That's not appropriate for work environment. That, we don't talk like that. We don't act like that. That's not acceptable. Was she in a safe space to go and say something to HR? Was it a safe space? Could she have gone to her?
Was there even an HR on site? Because that's a lot of times if the construction is HR is at a pretty office 100 kilometers away. And so there is no HR
to talk to. And so you're going to your leader. And was the leadership there, taking her seriously or telling her to buck up? You've got to, get thick skin. You're being too sensitive.
Oh, that's just him. That's just him.
That's just how he is. That's just how he is.
Yeah. He's like that with everyone. Like that's not acceptable.
That's not
acceptable. And I think it takes a lot of, I was a manager at one point. One of the hardest things as a manager is telling somebody you made a mistake. It's not easy to do that if you're coming from a place of care and compassion and you really care about the person. If you're just like if you have no heart, that's probably an easy job for you. But if you have a heart, it's hard. And so people something they'd rather avoid. And I think that happens too much in construction. We're not holding people accountable. We're just laying them off. We're not saying, by the way, I want to tell you, you were laid off because of this comment. They say nothing. They get no feedback. It perpetuates the behavior. They do it at the next construction site with the next person. They don't document the first time it happens. These are all behaviors of that need to be, made better for everybody. Because again, as we talked about, it's not just, females it's males we need to look out for too. Everybody deserves to have a respectful and a good workplace to go to.
And my experience was, like I said, it was a male who attacked another male, and he had a family, right? He didn't get to come home that day. I mean, anytime something tragic happens on a job site, whether it was, hey, I made a mistake from not following safety procedures, to harassment and mental health, again, that's another safety procedure that we stepped outside of. And we didn't stand up and say something when we didn't do something about it. If someone's not tied off on a structural steel beam and they're up there welding, we're going to say something, right?
Yeah.
If someone's practicing unsafe efforts while they're performing whatever tool, maybe the fire watch isn't there, or they don't have the right gloves on, or they don't have their safety glasses on, or they're not wearing their hard hats. We have all of these safety things in place for a reason. If those happened, we would say something. What that needs to also then relay over to when we hear someone speaking in a way that could be considered a huge red flag for bullying at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. It's bullying, and it can escalate into something negative. So I don't want to end on this note, but I thought it was important for us to talk about, because it was a recent thing, and being females in the world of construction, I just wanted to reiterate that tragic, terrible, not common. And men are not the problem. It's the culture, and being willing to have hard conversations and calling out the red flags when we see them. We want to honor her and her bravery to step into a world try the trades.
Yeah.
She was a welder and a beautiful human being. Everything I've read about her, I'm like, wow, this is bigger than just losing someone. She was an incredible
Yeah.
human
She
being.
had a family, she had friends, all of those things, right? It's much bigger than just the loss of a single life, right? And again, the whole community has been affected. I was at our union meeting yesterday, and we all took a moment of silence to remember her. Because again, it's when there's a loss of life on a construction site, if it's a workplace injury, we talk about it. This is even, in my opinion, more important, because I think this was probably more preventable. Because again, watch for the signs, look for weird behavior, call it out. Maybe that person needed some help. Maybe they needed a break, and it could have saved all of these things. We don't know. We weren't there, but we are in our own workplaces. We have brothers and sisters that we're with every day, and we have to look out for each other.
Deserves to go and work in a safe environment, physically and mentally.
Yeah,
so with that said, I mean, you have started into this world of trades, and you developed a brand called Lady Volts. And I know that just by watching and following you, that this Lady Volts was really bigger than you. Tell us about why you developed Lady Volts, and why did you start putting yourself out there in the spotlight on social media? What sparked it, and why you developed it?
Well, in my journey, there was women that came in and guest speakered in my pre-apprenticeship programs, and they provided that little bit of encouragement. And so I had seen previous women be mentors for people like myself, and seen how important that is as part of the journey. And I am a firm believer. The older I get, the more I believe it. Everything happens for a reason. So I can look back and be like, oh, I wasted 3 years on this child and youth work diploma, but it wasn't a waste at all, right? And so I think and then the business that I spent for 10 years, those business skills gave me the kind of background to be like, oh, well, I could do something here, right? I had a little bit of marketing, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So my 20s really kind of set me up for this idea that maybe I could be more like an advocate with these other people that have kind of set examples. And so, yeah, I started, and it allows me to combine that passion. And obviously, I went to child and youth work because there's passion there. And I really enjoy seeing that little light bulb go off. I love seeing their confidence. It's my favorite. Them go from, I can't to I can. This allowed me to kind of combine my child and youth work diploma with this, newfound passion for the trades and how it's really benefited my life. It just, kind of started with a couple posts, and it's kind of evolved. And the men on my construction site, right, they're valuable and important, helped me with my name. So I didn't come up with Lady Volts. That was a collaboration.
Oh, that's
it was
fantastic.
Right. It was a lunchroom conversation. What are some fun names, right? Lady, what was one that, of course, one that's Madame Moret. I was like, no, that sounds way too, no. So they had some good ones and they had some bad ones. But Lady Volts, I was like, I like that. And so I will give credit to Aaron. Aaron is the creator of Lady Volts from my construction site for previous years. But and so it's kind of, it's grown into I guess a brand. What I do now, so now I find myself, just yesterday I was in a classroom, and here in Ontario, they have grade 10 careers class. So it gives me the opportunity. I go in, I do a little blurb about myself, what is apprenticeship, just in case some of them are unfamiliar. And then we do a little mock receptacle. So I walk them through, no power, but just the basics of a receptacle. And I love it. At some point I asked them who wants to be an electrician, right? Because I'm curious who in the room might be interested. Maybe one person does like this, right? But then I asked them very quickly, who wants to be a homeowner? Well, like everybody's hands up, right? And so I remind them very quickly, well, let me tell you something. As a homeowner, and let me remind you, you're not homeowners yet, so don't do this at home. But when you own your own home, you legally can do these basic things, right? So you might never want to be an electrician, but this workshop's for you. And it's just proof that those transferable skills can really, save them time, money. A quick YouTube video or this class will help them potentially, change that receptacle or a light fixture one day, or spark, my bigger hope, even maybe a career for them in the field of some sort of trade. So that's where Lady Volt is now. She's a woman. I'm very many hats. I do a lot of some workshops, some keynote presentations, or panelists, whatever. Anywhere I can kind of reach somebody who might need to hear some positive, encouraging something today. So.
Which is how I found you. And and I actually had reached out to you. It was like 2019. And when I wrote my first book, that construction worker was my mom. And I sent it out to you and I said, hey, I want to send this to you. I love what you're doing. When I started reading that book, similar to you, I was dealing with little kids though. And when I read that book, something sparked in the children that sparked in my mind. And when I started telling them all the different types of trades that that built their school, I would ask them who wants to be a construction worker, and they wouldn't say I want to be a construction worker. They'd be like, I want to be the one that makes the lights turn on. And I'm like, that's an electrician. And so that's when I wrote the next 13 books, which each one of them are the trades, and just slowly kind of putting them out there. But right now it's called Hands on Heroes, and then right now we have the electrician out. And which is why I wanted to honor a fabulous Lady Volt in this industry, the electrician, which I'll be sending you a copy to share with you next for sure. And so, so if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about Lady Volt and follow her and see her journey, I will have all of her social links on this podcast. And then also I want to give a shout out to my title sponsor, who I couldn't keep the mic on without them, Mod 42 Modular Data Centers. And then finally, if you want to learn any more about Hands on Heroes, how you get involved, how you get the books, how you get the STEM kits, how you can go out in your own community and give back to schools, because our mission really is to put STEM kits and books in children's hands so they can imagine themselves as trades in the future, because most STEM programs have robotics and coding, or they don't have any STEM program at all. And they're definitely not talking to the kids about trades. They're still pushing college as the only option. And so that's what we're here trying to do. And you can find that also in the notes, but I'll go ahead and say it now. It's handsonheroes.net. So thank you so much, Shannon, for taking the time today to share a little bit about your journey, where you are today, and the inspirations you're putting out there every day. I love being connected with people like you. And again, thank you for going a little bit deeper to just talk about, the tragedy that recently happened. That was a hard conversation for us to have. But I thought it was an important conversation to have. So thank you for sharing with me on that. And to anybody who's considering the future and you're not sure what you're going to do, go do an internship, try out the trades. Electrician's a great job to have.
And thank you for putting, because I think it's so important that, I'm in high school, but I don't think that's soon enough. I've been not in high school. I've been doing workshops with high school students. It's not early enough. And I think it's so important what you're doing. We need to be introducing these topics to children, not youth, to children, so that they can consider it, play around with their head, actually maybe play, right? Pick up a tool and play. Remember those little things you'd hammer stuff, right? Let them build some inspiration. And so I think it's so important what you're doing, and getting sure that our young people, our children, can consider it as an option.
I thank you so much. I do agree that if we don't plant the seeds today, then our crisis doesn't go away. It should not be high school when they hear about this for the first time. Thank you so much for being on Hands on Heroes today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you for watching this episode of Hands on Heroes. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click on the bell to get notified every Thursday that a new video has been posted. And while we're here, check out another episode. Also, if you're interested in joining the mission, either as a guest speaker or sponsor, visit handsonheroes.net for more information, or reach out to us directly at info@handsonheroes.net.